ब्रह्मनाथ ओ शांति 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 स्वस्थ।
Hello students, in the previous class we discussed first the blood vessels, in which we discussed the artery, the veins and also the capillaries. We discussed the artery carry the oxygenated blood, exception is your pulmonary artery. In the case of the veins, it carry the deoxygenated blood, but the exception is pulmonary veins. Next students, we discussed both the artery and the veins consist of distinct three layers: outer tunica adventitia, middle tunica media and the inner layer that is called the tunica intima. But one major difference is present in the case of the artery and the veins, that in the case of the artery students, the lumen or the we can say the space, the lumen is very narrow as compared to the veins, because the lumen in the case of the veins is much wider as compared to the artery. Okay. Next we discussed the capillaries, in which we discussed that the artery are being branched to form more fine branches like structures, those are called the arterioles, and arterioles are further branched to form the capillaries, whereas the veins also branch to form the venules and also they are branched to form the various capillaries. So capillaries are the fine branch vessels which helps, or we can say it is the area in which the exchange of the gases or the nutrients takes place, because the oxygenated blood comes into the artery and the deoxygenated blood flows in the veins. As we go have seen the direction, the blood coming from the we can say in the artery and going from in the direction of the vein direction, means in the artery oxygenated blood exchange take place, then the deoxygenated blood is being flown in the case of the veins. Next students, we discussed the cardiac cycle. What is cardiac cycle? It is the sequence of events that occurs inside the heart per beat. Our heart beats for about 72 times per minute. So for one beat it takes about 0.8 second, or we can say less than 1 second, in which we discuss so many systolic and diastolic phases takes place: arterial systolic phases, arterial diastolic phase, ventricular systole phase, ventricular diastolic phase, and also we discuss the complete cardiac diastole, in which the heart rests, or all the four chambers, or eventually we can say the heart rest for 0.4 second, by which we calculated so many points such as the arterial systole, diastole, cumulatively it forms the 0.8 second. Similarly ventricular systole, ventricular diastole, it forms the total time, that is called the 0.8 second. So this goes simultaneously. Okay. Next we discuss the cardiac output, means it is the volume of the blood, or we can say volume of the blood that flows, or we can say pumped by the each ventricle per minute. We found the value around the 5.5 liter per minute. Then we discuss the ECG, okay, by which it is an instrument by which we can discuss, or by which we can record the potential difference of the cardiac muscles. So like this we discussed so many points in our previous class. Today students, first of all we will discuss the heart sound. Students, you can realize that when our heart beats, it creates some sort of sound. Yes, it creates two sound. First, it creates the sound called the lub, means the L-U-B, or in also some books it is being written as L-U-B-B. Also the second sound is dup, D-U-P. Don't worry, I will write. When the first sound arises students, yes, when the arteria are full of blood, they contract and they what happens, they flow the blood into the ventricle region. Okay, when the ventricles are full of blood, what happens? The valve such as the bicuspid valve and the tricuspid valve, they close. Yes, at that time the first sound arises, that is called the lup. When the second sound arises, that is your dup. Yes, after the ventricles get contracts, obviously we know from the right ventricle the pulmonary aorta arises, which flows the blood into the lungs, and also the left ventricle, from the left ventricle the systemic aorta arises, which flows the blood all over the body except lungs. We also know that the semilunar valve is present to prevent the backflow of the blood. Yes, when the blood is being flowing from the ventricle regions to all the body parts, to prevent the backflow, obviously the semilunar valves get closed. Yes, that is the moment when the second sound arises, that is called the dup, or we can say DUP. Okay, let's write this point. So first sound, that is lub, or we can say in some books also LUBB, it is also written, so don't confuse. Lub is produced, first sound, that is lub, is produced when the valves such as bicuspid valve and tricuspid valve closes. Simple. Second point. The second sound, that is called the DUP, dup, produces when the semilunar valve of the pulmonary aorta and the systemic aorta closes. Second sound, that is DUP, dup, is produced when the semilunar valve of the, we know in the both the cases of the opening it is present, valves of the semilunar valves of the pulmonary aorta or pulmonary artery, no, don't confuse, pulmonary aorta and systemic aorta closes. Remember, pulmonary aorta arises from the right ventricle, systemic aorta arises from the left ventricle. Okay, closes. Okay, so these are the two sounds which repeatedly we listen, lup tup, lup tup, lup tup, like this we listen. Okay, so students, now come to our next, that how this cardiac activity are being regulated, students. Yes, first we discuss the neural regulation, then we will discuss the hormonal regulation. Okay. The neural regulation, obviously it controls two types. First the inhibitory nerve, second one is your accelerator nerve. Inhibitory means it decreases the heartbeat, accelerator means it increases the heartbeat. So in the case of the inhibitory nerve, students, it consists of, students, parasympathetic nerves. Which type of nerves it consists of? It consists of parasympathetic nerves. Okay, so we can write our first point. It consists of the parasympathetic nerves. Okay, students. Similarly, in the case of the accelerator nerves, it consists of the sympathetic nerves. It consists of the sympathetic nerves. So, in the case of the inhibitor nerves, what happens? In the case of the inhibitor nerves, as we know that the nerves which is being associated with the inhibitor nerves is known as your vagus nerve. As we discussed, students, obviously the neural means some sort of, we can say, the nerve is being associated. In the case of the inhibitor nerves, the nerves which is being associated, that is called the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve, whenever it is being stimulated, it secrete the hormone that is called the acetylcholine. And whenever the acetylcholine is being released, whatever it does, it decreases the heartbeat. Inhibitor means, students, it decreases the heartbeat. Okay, let's write the point. The nerve which is associated with it, it is called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve, what it does, it stimulate to secrete hormone called acetylcholine. This acetylcholine, students, help in decreasing the heartbeat. Always remember, inhibitory means decreasing the heartbeat. Decreasing the heartbeat. Okay, students. Next, accelerator nerves. It consists of the sympathetic nerves. Okay, students, what happens in this? In this, the nerve which is associated is called the adrenergic nerve. It releases to form the secrete the hormone that is called the sympathin. Sympathin means it is mutually composed of the adrenaline and the noradrenaline hormone. It eventually helps in the increasing of the heartbeat. Let's write this point. Here the nerves, like as here vagus nerve, here is your adrenergic nerves. Adrenergic nerves. When it stimulates to secrete, I am writing or totally I write. Okay, secrete hormone that is called the sympathin. Okay, to secrete the sympathin. What it does, the sympathin, what it does, it increases the heartbeat. It increases the heartbeat. Okay, simply we can write it secret, you can write, don't write the secret or hormones or something, just remember, you will be confused, just remember it secretes. Okay, it secretes sympathin, which helps in increasing the heartbeat, or we can say it increases the heartbeat. Okay. So what we have discussed, the inhibitor nerves means it helps in decreasing the heartbeat. So it consists of the parasympathetic nerves and the nerve which is associated, that is called the vagus nerve. It stimulates to secrete the hormone called the acetylcholine, which helps in decreasing the heartbeat. Whereas the accelerator nerve means accelerate means increase. It consists of the sympathetic nerve, and adrenergic nerve is being associated with the accelerator nerve. It stimulates to secrete the sympathin, which helps in increasing the heartbeat. Okay. Next, students, what are the hormonal regulation? So here two glands are being associated. One is your thyroid, other one is your adrenal. Adrenal gland is present on the upper part of the kidney. Okay. Next, the two hormones, thyroid secrete the thyroxine and adrenal secretes the adrenaline and the noradrenaline. Sympathin is nothing but it composed of the adrenaline and the noradrenaline. So we can say, students, thyroxine and adrenaline and the noradrenaline both helps in increasing the heartbeat. So we can cumulatively write the thyroxine, or we can say the thyroid releasing hormone, or simply we can write thyroxine. It helps in the increasing of the heartbeat. Similarly, the adrenaline and the noradrenaline also helps in the increase of the heartbeat. Okay, students, so as of now what we have read, First point. First sound is produced, that is called the lub, which is produced when the bicuspid valve and tricuspid valve closes. Second sound, that is the dub, is produced when the semilunar valves of the both pulmonary aorta and systemic aorta closes. How it is being regulated? It is controlled by neural and also hormonal. Inhibitor nerve. It consists of the parasympathetic nerve, and that nerve which is associated with it, it is called the vagus nerve. It stimulates to secrete the hormone called the acetylcholine, which helps in decreasing the heartbeat. Similarly, acceleratory means we can say increasing. It consists of the sympathetic nerves, sympathetic, parasympathetic, we will discuss in our nervous system, don't worry about that. And the nerve which is associated with the accelerator nerve, that is called the adrenergic nerve. It stimulates to secrete the sympathin, and the sympathin nothing but the composition of the, it composed of the adrenaline and the noradrenaline. The sympathin helps in increasing the heartbeat. Okay, increasing the heartbeat. Next, what are the hormones regulated, means which regulate the cardiac activity? Two glands are associated, thyroid gland and the adrenal gland. Thyroid gland secrete the thyroxine, and the adrenal gland secrete the adrenaline and the noradrenaline. Both the thyroxine and the adrenaline and the noradrenaline, both it helps in increasing the heartbeat. It both helps in increasing the heartbeat, or we can also say it increases the heart rate. Okay students, so we discussed heart sound and regulation of the cardiac activity. Please note down. Students, now we will discuss some important blood related disorders. First we will discuss the hypertension. If simply in simple words I will say hypertension means increasing of the BP or the blood pressure. Okay students, so what is the hypertension? Students, the normal blood pressure, simply blood pressure means what? As we know that the blood is being flown in the closed vessel or the closed blood vessels. So obviously that blood should be exerting some sort of pressure on the wall of the vessels. So that pressure is nothing but the blood pressure. And as we are discussing for the supplying of the blood, then obviously we are discussing about the oxygenated blood, and we are discussing of the oxygenated blood means simply here we are discussing about the arteries. So simply students, blood pressure have the formula, general formula, such as the systolic blood pressure is divided by the diastolic blood pressure. Okay, so we can write blood pressure normally formula is equal to the systolic blood pressure, okay, divided by diastolic blood pressure, okay, which can come up to, we can say, 120 by 80 mm of Hg. Means the systolic blood pressure should be 120, diastolic blood pressure should be 80. So this is normal, this is good, this is normal, this is the normal pressure that is being exerted to the, we can say, the wall of the vessels. But hypertension means what? If this systolic blood pressure arises and increases up to 140, and the diastolic pressure arises and increases up to 90 mm of Hg, then this condition is nothing but, we can say, the hypertension or high BP. So what is the proper definition? We can write, if the systolic blood pressure increases up to 140 mm of Hg and diastolic blood pressure increases up to 90 mm of Hg, then this condition is known as the hypertension. Then this condition is known as hypertension or simply high blood pressure or high BP. So students, what are the various causes of the hypertension? See, taking enough oily foods, then the smoking, then it can be also hereditary, then the age factor, the obesity means having much fat in the body, and also we can say the age factor, sedentary lifestyle. Okay, I'll tell you, don't worry. There are so many reasons. First reason can be your hereditary. Next, the smoking. Next, the oily foods. Taking oily foods, junk food. Next, age. Next, obesity. Next, sedentary lifestyle. Etc. Okay, hereditary means it could be means the trait passes from the ancestors. It could be also one of the reasons. Smoking, the taking of the oily foods, which all of you are fond of. Whenever you see the junk food, you attack on the food and eat all the food within 1 minute. Yes or not? Am I taking wrong? Am I talking wrong? No. Okay. So control while eating the oily food. Never smoke. Okay. Obviously, the age also is one of the important factor or the important cause behind the hypertension. Next, the obesity also. Obesity means having lots of fat. Okay. Next, the sedentary lifestyle. Sedentary lifestyle means what, students? Suppose you can see a shopkeeper owner. What he or she does? Simply sit on the cash counter. He do nothing. He tells bring that. He tells do that value or do that bring that thing. He gives the order. Means he's not doing nothing but only sitting on his or her place and doing all the calculations or planning or something like that. So means what? Sedentary lifestyle means he or she is sitting on one place, not doing any form of physical activity. So that style is known as your sedentary lifestyle. So that may also increase as the metabolic activity is almost negligible in that person. So that may also lead to the hypertension. Obviously, he will sit only, he will not do anything, and that will lead to the fat, that will lead to the obesity, which may also lead to the hypertension. Okay, students. So next, what are the various, we can say, effect? It can have a great impact, or we can say, on the brain, the kidney, the eye, and also some vital organs of our body. It affects the brain, kidney, the eye, and also some important or vital organs. Okay, some vital organs. Okay, brain, it may lead also to the brain hemorrhage. Okay, and also it may lead to the paralysis. It may also lead to paralysis. Okay. Next, the treatment is, we can say, such as the methyl dopa and the propranolol are being used. The methyl dopa and the propranolol are being used as medicine in the case of hypertension. Okay. So students, what we have discussed, that the hypertension means simply increasing the blood pressure. If normal blood pressure is systolic blood pressure by diastolic blood pressure, 120/80 mmHg, this is normal. If the systolic blood pressure increases up to 140, and the diastolic blood pressure if it increases up to 90 mmHg, then this condition is student known as the hypertension. Okay. See how the hypertension arises. I am giving you a common example. Suppose this is the artery lumen. This is the artery lumen. Eating of highly junk food or oily food, what happens? The cholesterol, students, gets deposited on this wall of the blood vessels. Okay. So students, you only tell me. Before it was like this, but as the cholesterol get deposited on the wall, obviously with which speed it was flowing inside before, obviously it will run with a faster speed because the space becomes narrower. You can see whenever you supply the water to your any plant by the pipe, what we do if the plant is in the much far direction or the much distance region, what we do? We simply press the pipe, by which the speed increases and it flows up to the plant. Similarly, whenever in the normal case it flows, but whenever due to our health, our own habitat only is the main reason of the hypertension, what happens? The cholesterol get deposited on the blood vessels, by which the blood, as the lumen becomes narrower, the blood flows in a very increased rate or increased pressure. That is why it is called as the increasing systolic. If it increases up to 140 and diastolic if it increases up to 90, then it causes the hypertension. And obviously there are so many causes. It may be hereditary, it may transmit from your ancestors also. Smoking, main reason, don't do it, never. Taking oily foods, please take less oily foods. Age is also one important factor. Obesity, increase of the fat. Sedentary lifestyle means the person who does work but he only sit on one place. Okay. It affects badly the brain also, it may also lead to the brain hemorrhage. Blood clot also it can happen. The kidney also it can damage, then the eye and also some vital organs. It may also lead to the paralysis. Treatment, what are the medicines that are being used? Methyl dopa and the propranolol are being used as a medicine in the case of the hypertension. Okay students, please note down. Students, now we will discuss some more blood related disorder, that is we can say the coronary artery diseases or the CAD. Coronary artery means the artery which supply the oxygenated blood to the heart. Okay, so we can say that it is being referred to the atherosclerotic heart disease, means it is a cardiovascular heart disease. Okay, how it being caused? It is caused because due to the deposition of the fat, calcium, cholesterol, which is being deposited on the wall of the coronary artery. As I said you, suppose this is the lumens and suppose in the wall of the artery these will deposit such as the fat, calcium, cholesterol. Obviously the lumen will become narrower. Okay, so this causes, we can say, the coronary artery diseases. Okay, the main causes are deposition of fat, calcium, cholesterol on the wall of the coronary arteries. Okay, next point, it leads, obviously as I said you, it leads to the narrowing of the lumen of the coronary arteries. It is basically caused by which factors? It is caused by the smoking, hypertension, or we can say the high blood pressure. It is the main reason behind we can say the coronary artery disease or the CAD. Due to, we can say, the narrowing of the blood vessels or the coronary artery, it also may lead to the ischemia. Ischemia means what? It causes it is the condition in which the narrowing of the blood vessel takes place, by which it leads to the insufficient supply of the oxygen. Obviously, as we are discussing about the artery, students, means we are discussing about the supplying of the oxygenated blood in which it is being enriched with the O2. So if the narrowing of the blood vessel will takes place, so obviously we can say the amount of oxygen that will flow, that is we can say it is the insufficient amount of oxygen. That is why it is told as ischemia. It is the condition in which the narrowing of the blood vessel takes place, which leads to the insufficient supply of the oxygen. And also in this, the myocardial infarction takes place. Means what? It is the case in which the death or the damage of the myocardial tissue takes place. Because of which factor? Due to the less amount of the O2 supply. How it is being damaged? As we know, the cells or the tissue, they consistently require the O2 supply so that they can oxidize and also they can produce the byproduct, so that they can maintain the life. But as the O2 supply is being limited or insufficient O2 supply is being present, that is why the myocardial tissue, or we can say death of the myocardial tissue, takes place, and that is nothing but the condition that is called the myocardial infarction. Next, the angina pectoris. In this case, heavy chest pain occurs. Okay, in this case also narrowing of the blood vessels occurs. But in this case, students, no necrosis of the cardiac muscle tissue. Means what? In this case we discussed the death of the myocardial tissue takes place, but in the case of the angina pectoris, no death. Necrosis means, students, death. No death of the cardiac muscle tissue takes place. And the major risk factors includes the persons who generally smoke, having the diabetes, having the high cholesterol, and having the high blood pressure. They have the high chance having this blood disorder that is called the angina pectoris. Lastly, the heart failure. It is the inability of the heart to pump the blood to the various organs or the part of the body. What is being written? Let's see. It is a condition in which the heart is unable to provide the sufficient pumping action. Means it is the heart, main heart means what? It acts as a motor. As the motor, what does? It supplies the water to the tank or some the tap. Similarly, the heart also, it acts as the pumping machine. It supplies the blood to all over the body. Similarly, if that function becomes abnormal, if that pumping action becomes lower, by which it causes the heart failure. Also, due to the heart failure, the main reason is it causes to the congestion of the lungs. Okay, obviously, if the heart is unable to supply the blood and the lungs is unable to receive the required amount of blood, obviously the lungs will not function properly, or we can say it will function abnormally. That is known as the congestion of the lungs. And this whole disease, we can say it is a congestive heart failure disease, as the heart functions abnormally. Okay, students, so we discussed first the coronary artery disease, in which it may cause through the ischemia and the myocardial infarction, in which the death of the myocardial tissue takes place. And in the angina pectoris, the no necrosis means no death of the myocardial tissue takes place. And also we discussed the angina pectoris heart failure in detail. One point to remember, students, what is the necrosis, what is apoptosis? Apoptosis means, for a general knowledge I am telling, apoptosis means the programming cell death. Means if a person is dying in a normal way, so that the oxygen supply will be we can say the insufficient blood supply or the oxygen supply will be given to the cell, by which it will slowly the cell will death. It is known as the programming cell death. It is known as the apoptosis. Necrosis means, students, what it is? It is means accidental cell death. Means if the cell damage occurs or cell death occurs due to some sort of injury, accident, etc. This is I am telling for your extra knowledge. Okay. So students, today we have discussed so many blood disorder. Before that we discussed the heart sound. The first heart sound, beat sound, is called your lub or your LUB. It is produced when the closure of the bicuspid valve and the tricuspid valve takes place. Next sound, that is called a DUP, is produced when the closure of the semilunar valve of the pulmonary aorta and the systemic aorta takes place. Next we discussed some blood related disorder also. Okay, now in which we discussed the hypertension, clearly we discussed. Okay, it is the, we can say, normal blood pressure means what? It is the ratio between the systolic blood pressure and the diastolic blood pressure, which is having the ratio 120 to the 80 mm of Hg. if the systolic pressure increases up to 140 and the diastolic blood pressure increases up to 90 mm of Hg, then that causes the hypertension. Okay. Next, we discuss so many other blood related disorders such as your coronary artery disease, then the angina pectoris, and lastly the heart failure. So that's all for today. We will meet in our next class. Thank you.